getting to be evening here in the Netherlands.
Okay, perfect. So welcome. We are starting.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel presentation. I'm delighted that we can present a good practice to you this afternoon. My name is Eefke de Lauw. I'm currently in the Netherlands, and I'm joined by two colleagues who I'll introduce to you in a few moments. We're very honored to be presenting at this wonderful conference, and I hope so far your conference experience has been great. And today we're going to address a good practice that we developed in the Netherlands, capacity building in professional development, a cross-institutional approach in internationalizing teaching and learning practices. So who are joining me today? Well, we have two other speakers, one from the same institution. Maybe Claudia, you can go to the next slide, please. We're joined by Eva Haug. She can't be here live today, but she will be contributing via a video later on. Eva works at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands, where she is an educational advisor specializing in internationalization of the curriculum. Jessica Schinnick comes from Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences, also in the Netherlands. She's an internationalization advisor at their Center for International Affairs and also an intercultural trainer. My colleague in The Hague, at The Hague University of Applied Sciences, Claudia Bournes, is also part of this panel presentation. She's a policy advisor on internationalization of the curriculum and internationalization at home. And my name is Eefke de Lauw, as already said. I'm the senior international officer at The Hague. And so we'll be sharing a tale of three institutions in the Netherlands. I'll briefly introduce them later on, but before we start and dive into the why, how and what of our good practice, we thought it would be relevant to frame the session in the larger context of internationalization, as it provides the rationale to why we should be discussing professional development of our academics. Claudia, maybe you can go to the next slide. There we go. We are aware that there's many different concepts around, many different terms. Internationalization at home is one of them, internationalization of the curriculum, global learning. But we decided to frame the presentation in the context of internationalization at home, because that's a term that is quite often used within our European context. And it frames the context for us and why it's important to invest in professional development of lecturers, of academics. The definition you can see here on screen. Internationalization at home means to say the purposeful integration of international and intercultural dimensions into the formal and informal curriculum for all students within domestic learning environments. And what is crucial here is that, first of all, it is a process. It is about integrating international and intercultural dimensions in teaching and learning practices. So that means that we're focusing on a certain learning outcome, learning that has to be done by our students. We want to equip our students with key employability skills that are needed in this global, very interconnected world. And we do this for all our students, and not just the ones who go away on a study abroad experience or an international internship. And so the focus is very much on the teaching, the syllabus, and our didactics in the classroom. And that is why it is so important that we also consider one of the key stakeholders in this, namely our academics, as ultimately they are the ones who design education and deliver the teaching in practice as well. So as already said, this is a term that is commonly used in our setting in the Netherlands, in Europe. But we also would like to find out a little bit more about your context. So if you go to the next slide, Claudia, we have formulated a number of questions. And in a few moments, you will see these questions in a poll. There's 4 different questions, and every single time you can answer with yes, no, or I don't know. So you should be able to see the first question on the screen, and you can cast your votes. The question is internationalization at home, or internationalization of the curriculum, or global learning? Are these terms that you're familiar with? Is it used in your context? You can say yes, no, or I don't know. And you can also see the second question there as well. Are you working on internationalization at home, or internationalization of the curriculum, or global learning for all students in your institution? So I'm just going to wait until a few more of you have been able to answer those 2 questions. And it's good to see that the majority of you are saying that those terms are used within your institutional context, and that a majority of you are also working on those themes and would like to reach all students. Just going to give you a little bit more time as we have so many participants. Okay, so for those of you who've just joined, just 2 questions for you to react to. And we're almost at 60% of those of you who've responded. But I think so far the picture that has emerged is that indeed it's the concepts of internationalization at home, or the curriculum of global learning, are terms you're familiar with. And many of you are also working on those themes at your institution. Okay, so I think we can end this poll now. Madhuri, if you can close the poll, and we'll carry on with the next 2 questions.
They're in the same poll, the questions, Sevika. So if you
Oh,
just scroll down.
Okay, I can't see the poll. Ah, there we go. Yes, thank you, Claudia. Okay, so we can also see that professional development of lecturers in internationalization is the strategic choice. That is a little bit of a more fuzzy picture emerging. So about more than half of you say yes, it is a strategic priority. Some of you don't know, and some of you say no. And lastly, and this is really what the session is about, does your institution offer professional training for lecturers in internationalization? About a quarter of you do. Majority of you say that you don't offer anything yet, or you don't know yet. So hopefully today's presentation will give you some inspiration. So Madhuri, you can stop sharing the poll now, and we can carry on. Thank you. Just going to close the poll. Okay. So thank you for responding to the poll. We'll know a little bit more about your context. So let's go back to our approach, our example. You can go to the next slide, please, Claudia. So As we said, the institutions that are part of this good practice are all situated in the Netherlands, a tiny country in the northwestern part of Europe, situated in 3 different cities, The Hague, Amsterdam, and Rotterdam. And these cities are quite similar. They're very multicultural. The universities are all universities of applied sciences, which means to say that the working practice is very much connected to what we do in our degree programs. They're also similar in size. So to give you indications, around 30 to 40,000 students, and the majority of our programs are Dutch medium programs at undergraduate level. So the institutions were quite similar, and we connected with one another because we had similar interests. We all believed that we needed to invest in capacity building for our professional development courses. And that is because 2 of the institutions, The Hague and Amsterdam, had included internationalization at home or internationalization of the curriculum in their institutional strategies. So there was a real management commitment and a drive to making sure that all of the degree programs would allow students to develop their international intercultural competences at home. Rotterdam had a slightly different situation. They opted for meaningful internationalization, which means to say that they opted for more of a bottom-up approach and actually encouraged all their degree programs to really find out what type of internationalization would be relevant for their specific discipline, for their specific context. So that was more of a bottom-up approach. Yet all 3 institutions wanted to provide professional development programs, and some of them were already doing that, but were concerned about the fact that we may not have enough training capacity. So by joining forces, we were able to expand our trainers pool and become more agile in what kind of trainings we could offer and when. Another important motivation was that we wanted to offer our lecturers, our academics, the experience of peer learning, and for them to also expand their networks across institutions, because we believe that that would really enrich their teaching and learning practices in their own institution. And finally, another important consideration was that we as trainers also wanted to make sure that what we were doing in our trainings would be of a high level. So by joining forces together, we wanted to make sure that we as trainers could professionalize more and enhance the quality of our trainings. So 3 institutions, 2 with more of a top-down approach, internationalization of the curriculum or internationalization at home being a strategic institutional priority, Rotterdam taking more of a bottom-up approach, but all 3 institutions very much committed to developing professional development courses for academics. So that's a little bit of the background. And so we started our journey. And Claudia, you can go on to the next slide and you can take over from here as you're going to show what our journey looked like.
Thank you, Eveka. Indeed, first of all, antes de nada, un saludo en español a todos los participantes hispanohablantes, and I will continue in English now for the rest of my part. And what I'm going to do, indeed, like Eveka said, is describe the step that we took in our journey, as it were, for this institution or cross-institutional training collaboration that we developed together. And the first thing I should say, perhaps, is how we connected, how we met each other. And it was just as simple as attending similar events because of our interest, and events similar to the one that we are attending this week with the CAIE Congress. And that made us connect very quickly, and we found out about a common interest in our roles as trainers at our respective institutions as well. So the first thing that we did was we decided to take a look at what we were doing in terms of staff professionalization and internationalization. And in that sense, some of us had already developed and were delivering trainings, and others were still in the design phase at that time. And when we looked at our training offer, that's the first thing we did, we identified different areas of expertise at the 3 different institutions, which is what you can see on the screen now. Rotterdam was focusing more on intercultural competence. In The Hague, we were focusing on internationalization of the curriculum and co-curriculum, and also on the international classroom. And the third institution, that was Amsterdam, had a lot of expertise and a lot of experience, and they were very active in COIL. I'm sure you're familiar with the term COIL, collaborative online international learning. And if you're new to the term, it's basically student collaboration online, and COIL is one of the platforms that you can work with. So that was the first thing that we did. And after that initial inventory, it was time for us to work on a program based on our expertise. So we decided it would need to be a program that would have added value, obviously, for all 3 institutions, and at the same time to the individual participants, so that they could see the value of this training in their roles, but also as part of the bigger picture. The program, that is the program that they were working in at the time, but also always keeping the institutional context and the goals, institutional goals in mind. We also decided to focus on lecturers, academics or teaching staff. And because of that, the title of the training ended up being Internationalization in the Classroom. But this is, of course, including everything that the classroom entails, from didactics to course design, to put it that way. And we will zoom into the content of the sessions in a moment with more details on what we covered. But let me move on to the next step of our journey, and that was to decide on the design principles of the training itself. And it was very clear for us from the start that there would need to be an interactive training, interactive sessions, where participants would have the opportunity to work with their courses in mind, also during the sessions as such, and apply the input that they got during the sessions to their courses directly. And besides that, part of the added value of working across institutions is cross-fertilization. And this is both for the participants, because we put them to work in mixed teams, so always connecting with someone from another of the 3 institutions, and that way they could relate to colleagues from other Dutch programs, something that doesn't happen by itself. So we needed to initiate that as well. Cross-fertilization for the participants, like I said, but also very much so for the trainers themselves, for us, sharing our expertise, learning from each other as well. And that's something that we also took into account when dividing our tasks for the training sessions. So we teamed up with a trainer from one of the other institutions, and depending on the topic of the session itself, the trainer with the expertise take the lead and would be supported by the other trainer from the other institution, who would add then another perspective and looked at the session and the contents with a different lens where necessary. And we move on to the next step, and you see here bureaucracies, and this is something that we know we always have to be prepared to face in the world of higher education. We need to know how to navigate bureaucracies, institutional priorities, and such. In our context in the Netherlands, we have what we call teaching and learning centers, providing professionalization trainings. We also have the role of educational developers who support also lecturers and programs in curriculum design, and they all in a way have that role of supporting lecturers. That can be in curriculum development, in didactics, in professionalization as such. So our tactic in this context was to call this a pilot. That's how we started. And for us, this meant that we were able to say that there were no fees involved, no fees across institutions, no internal fees. And also, at the same time, that made it easier for us to get management support, because there would be no fees, and they would support the cost involved, because there was something shared by 3 institutions. So we would share the facilities, the use of rooms, catering. It was not all down to one institution. And I should say also that we hosted the sessions in turns at the 3 institutions as well. So in practice, that meant that the training or the trajectory was quite cheap to run. And what we wanted to do with this was for the bureaucratic threshold to be as low as possible as well. And we also recruited the participants ourselves at our own respective institutions. So that was our approach to navigate the institutional bureaucracies. Now, how did we get participants on board? In the first round that we offered the training, and we are now at the 3rd edition of the training, the first time we decided to recruit 5 or 6 colleagues from each of the institutions, keep the group manageable, and to involve colleagues from both bachelor and master programs. And the funny thing is, while I say this, is that even these 2 groups, teaching staff from master's and bachelor programs, they don't have contact with each other within the same institution even. So we started with smaller groups, and we extended the number of participants a little in the 2nd and 3rd editions of the training to 10 participants per institution. The first time that we offered the training, we focused on one discipline. So we aimed the training or the participants that we recruited were mostly from business and economics programs. But now we're offering it in multidisciplinary teams, because we also see the added value of working in multidisciplinary teams and having those different perspectives in the training sessions as well. So the first time that we ran the training, we did that in person. In physical in-person sessions, and that was in the spring of 2019. And then while we were preparing for the 2nd round of the training, the pandemic descended upon us, as it were. So we had to go online. We were not ready to stop or to cancel. We decided to go online. We had to redesign the program to offer it digitally with different tools, obviously. But at the same time, we also took the opportunity to involve international partners, because it was a lot easier to do so in the online environment. And so what we did was to divide the session into webinars, and these were open to a wider audience with participants from our institutions, but also colleagues from some of our partners abroad. And the webinars were followed by workshops on the same days. And the workshops were for a smaller group of participants who would then go in depth into the content that we introduced in the webinars. So that was the structure that we designed when we went online. We are offering the trajectory as we speak. We actually had the 2nd session of 6 sessions last week. We are doing it online again, even though the restrictions of the pandemic have more or less all been lifted in the Netherlands. We decided to do it online because we actually found that offering the sessions online increased attendance in a way, because it made it easier for participants to attend the sessions, and also the structure of the webinars and workshops seemed to work really well too. So we decided to keep it that way. And this has been a complete journey so far. Like I said, we're not ready to give up. We keep going on and expanding and adding new elements each time. But we would now like to tell you a little bit about the contents of the training sessions. And I'm going to pass on the microphone to my colleague, Jessica Schinnig, who's joining us from Rotterdam. Jessica, yes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Claudia. So hello to all of you from Rotterdam, from the Netherlands. We're here, it's just becoming evening, and I think you're still in morning time, most of you, if not all of you. So we've heard so far from Eveke and Claudia. First, the why. Why did we decide to do this? And from Claudia, the approach. How did we approach going about designing and coming up with the content? And so now I'm going to focus on what actually did we do and the content of the sessions themselves. So this slide here just gives an overview or the framework that we had for the sessions. As Claudia mentioned, each session was 2.5 hours, and that was both in the live version, the first one that we did, as well as the online sessions that we did. In online, we gave people a break in between the 1 hour webinar and the optional workshop that they could join, which was an hour and a half long, but they had a half an hour in between. So that was slightly different, but otherwise the length of time of the sessions was the same. And we started with the first session focusing on the lecturer and the lecturer's role in the international classroom, and starting to do some reflection there. And we're going to go into each of these sessions more in detail in a moment, but the lecturer was first. In the second session, we focused on the curriculum. And let's say we started kind of broad, and then we narrowed in the scope a little bit. So from the curriculum to the third session, which was zooming in on the module itself. At the fourth session, we looked at the classroom. In the fifth session, as Claudia mentioned, we talked about COIL, which is collaborative online learning, or working virtually. And in the last session, we looked at assessment. These sessions were spread out typically with a couple of weeks in between, so that in between, and I think Claudia also mentioned, people had tasks that we asked them to do, to bring back what they've learned, to think about what their work is and how they could apply it to their work. So most of the time, these sessions were spread out over a period of, let's say, between 2 and 3 months. And if we could go to the next slide, Claudia, we'll start with the first session. And this was titled, How Internationalization Ready Are You? We started off actually here defining terms. So making sure, as we did also here in the start of the session, that we're all on the same way of thinking about what is internationalization at home, what is internationalization, how do we see what these terms mean, since there are a lot of different definitions. But then we really, we looked more at the perspectives of the lecturers. It's important that if you're going to be working particularly in an international classroom, that you also have some awareness of yourself as a lecturer. What do you bring in terms of your own perspectives, expectations that may be related to your cultural background? We look at also cultural identities, social identities in this, and how that influences our teaching and our work with our students. So all of the things that influence the teaching, we took time to look at in this first session. And the last thing that we did was we also looked at communication and communication styles, and how that may also be influenced by culture, and how that can be different when you're working with students and with colleagues from different cultural backgrounds. So we can go now to the next. Yeah, thanks. So the second session was about the curriculum, as I mentioned. How internationalization ready is your curriculum? And so first, of course, we looked at what is an internationalized curriculum. And then secondly, the why is it important? And this was a really significant part that we spent some time on. So we really believe that being clear about why you want to do this is necessary as a starting point for determining then what you're going to do that will follow. So, we spent quite some time on that. We also looked at trends in society, institutional strategies that gave kind of the broader context for internationalization within particular programs and institutes. And then we used a model, which is a very nice model. It's called the model of interculturality. And you see it there on the screen on your right, to map where programs are in their internationalization efforts, and also to be able to start to identify where things that are maybe missing and opportunities for development. So again, this is on the curriculum level. And I think we can go to the next one. Yes, module, thanks. So from the curriculum, we zoom into the module. And for this session, we had each lecturer that was participating bring in a module that they wanted to work on. So to use that and to do a bit of analysis on the alignment within the module. So are you taking into account the learning outcomes, and are there ways in which you could further internationalize your learning outcomes? The starting point with the learning outcomes, or let's say next step. So once you've got the why, then moving into what do we want the students to achieve? Are there ways in which we can internationalize the learning outcomes, or are we already doing that? Can we make it more explicit? So this was really a reflection process on what's already happening. And again, another opportunity to see what are we doing, but also where can we further develop. Now we move to the classroom. And this is sort of on a more on the micro level, let's say. So how internationalization ready are you in the classroom? And this is really looking at pedagogy. So what are the strategies, the methods, the tools that can be applied in the classroom? And also taking into account that we want to be inclusive and maximize the potential of the diversity that we have, particularly in the international classroom. Although if you don't have an international classroom, diversity is a very broad term. And what we ideally want, of course, is that we can bring all students with us when we're teaching so that they all feel comfortable, they can all learn. And when you've got a diverse group of students, how can we use that diversity for students to be able to learn well from each other and to learn things, to gain intercultural competencies, for example, from each other? So this is really a really nice session where teachers are really looking at their own practice in the classroom and recognizing that we all come in, students and teachers alike, with different expectations. How do we become clear about what that is? And also how can we, again, make the most of that diversity to create the best learning environment? In the fifth session, we look at this, the possibilities of working virtually. So working online. So virtual mobility, sometimes called online virtual collaboration, COIL, collaborative online international learning. So we looked at what is it, how can it be integrated in a module, particularly, of course, highlighting and emphasizing that students don't have to go abroad to be able to get an international experience. And that's something that, of course, we've learned very well, and we knew it before, but I think we've kind of taken the fast track now with COVID, that a lot of programs and courses have integrated virtual aspects to bring internationalization into their curriculum, because mobility wasn't a possibility. We still see it, though, as something that's crucial for all students. So we want to encourage all of the teachers that are participating to use this, not just as a replacement for mobility, but as a regular part of their curriculum, so that all students have access to developing international and intercultural competencies. So we looked at this from the perspective of, first of all, why is it relevant for you? What can you do? And also very practically, how can you do it? The last session that we had was on assessment. And this was one that we didn't have in the first round because, well, we didn't think of it when we were putting together the first time, but we got feedback from some of the participants in the first round who said, actually, we'd really like to learn more about assessment. And we recognize that this is actually also a really crucial part of rounding off this integration of international and intercultural competencies into the curriculum. So in order to be able to have this this flow, let's say this cohesion within the curriculum, starting with why are we doing this, then looking at the learning outcomes, then looking at how we're teaching the students, the teaching and learning process, and then finally the assessment is really necessary. And a lot of lecturers have challenges with how do I assess intercultural competencies, for example, how do I assess international competencies? So we explored different levels of assessment, different methods and tools that can be used. And I'm not sure about all of you and in your context, but in the Dutch context, for our accreditation bodies, they really want us to be able to show how do we know that the students have learned what we say that they've learned. And so the assessment piece is really important. So we round off with this piece in creating this comprehensive trajectory for lecturers. And we think that the reaction since we've added it has been very, very positive. So it's been a good step in making this complete. So this has been sort of a brief overview of the content. And now we're going to go to some reflections. The experience of some of the participants is what you'll hear first. And then we've got another video to show you. That's our colleague who couldn't make it today, Eva Haug, who's also sharing her experience with the trajectory.
For me, the added value of this training was that it made me realize that this subject is a subject that is gaining more recognition and importance within more universities. I really enjoyed the different kinds of perspectives and bringing together the varied experiences from involved professors from different universities and disciplines. It made me look at my activities and projects from a different angle, and it helped me evaluate our international program much better.
I've been teaching in international master programs for the last 11 years, and I thought I already know quite a lot about internationalization. However, the added value of this particular course for me was to actually rethink, to reflect on the rationale why we are doing that, and to think that we are actually not only educating business professionals, but also are educating global citizens for the future world. This led me eventually to rethink the contents of my own course, which is critical thinking, and I think that's the most important lesson for me.
The Netherlands is such a small country, so it's always good to broaden your network, share knowledge with other professionals from other higher educational institutions in the same country and outside. It has been a very interesting journey together with 10 other professionals from Amsterdam and Rotterdam, The Hague. And I would really recommend doing these kind of trainings and courses all the time, just to get out of your own bubble, share knowledge, best practices, challenges, and see how you can develop each other even more as a country, as a city, as an institution, and as a professional.
Hi, my name is Elina. I work at The Hague University at the Human Resource Management program. Last year, during the pandemic, I participated in the training Internationalization for lecturers, which I really enjoyed. Even though it was an online training because of the pandemic, it was really nice to get together during those weeks. I really felt that the group was sort of a community, as a live group can be. It was efficient getting together online, but still very accessible, interactive, and I think we all got the best out of it. It's nice to have the 3 universities and all the people together and then explore the ideas together. So I think the added value of a training like this is to gain lots of tools, lots of examples, having new ideas and possibilities for everything to do with internationalization. And for me it was a bit of a confirmation that you can really start small. You don't have to be complete or pompous, just starting with something internationalization-like.
Hi, I'm Eva Haug. So after listening to the reflection of the participants, it's only fair that we as a team reflect as well. So allow me to share some observations with you. First, I'd like to mention the impact that we are seeing and that this trajectory is having on the lecturers. The workshops enable them to see their internationalization activities in the larger context of their module, the program, and even the university at large, the policies and the strategies implemented to internationalize the campus or internationalize at home. So seeing this big picture helps them position their internationalization activities in a more comprehensive manner and connect them to the stakeholders, to the program, and to everybody that needs to be connected in order to help students and lecturers make sense of these endeavors. In addition, the workshops aim to hand them the tools to bring these ideas to practice and then create an impact in their programs. So we're not only providing them with ideas, we're providing them with practical tools that they can implement and share with their colleagues. So secondly, the impact of this joint venture on us as trainers has also been quite impressive. By combining our expertise, we have been able to develop our skills even further as facilitators of professional development. Working together in preparing and creating the content for the workshop, but also by facilitating the workshops together and observing one another when we're not facilitating, we're observing one another. All of this has improved the quality of all of our sessions combined. Moving the facilitation online, as we had to do in 2020, has further deepened and expanded our skills as we needed to creatively pivot our content and our delivery. And then we have actually discovered a lot of benefits from doing it online. All of these things combined has helped us deliver higher quality than we would have actually had independently. So opening up the workshops to our international partners, which we were able to do because we went online, has allowed us to test then the content of our sessions in diverse contexts. So not just our institutional context, not just the Dutch context, but all kinds of different contexts. And we're very happy to see that what we're talking about and what we're trying to help lecturers bring about, the kind of changes in their modules, actually work in all kinds of contexts. So even international partners are able to apply this to their specific needs. So all this learning continuously circles back to improve our sessions. What is also an interesting thing to mention is that these joint trajectories have actually led to other collaborations. For example, a newsletter curated by the Hague University of Applied Sciences together with Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences. And Rotterdam and Amsterdam also work together to provide COIL workshops for staff and especially for lecturers. So we're very excited about all the opportunities that this trajectory has brought so far, and we're looking forward to seeing more things happening in the future. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so hopefully we've been able to share some of our ingredients for what we consider to be a very successful journey thus far. For successful internationalization at home practices or internationalization of the curriculum practices, we strongly believe that it starts with equipping our academics, our lecturers, because often they have not been prepared for their tasks to internationalize a curriculum, a module, and that is why professional development of lecturers is key. And you've also noted in the reflections from some of our participants that besides learning about what does internationalization mean in the classroom and how do I do that in my courses, that there have been great benefits beyond that, expanding networks, gaining new perspectives, but also looking with fresh eyes to your own practice and thereby enhancing the quality of our education. And also not to forget, setting up, creating communities of practitioners for peers to continue learning together. But obviously, we're also very curious to find out from you what resonated with you from the story that was shared with you today. Our context is obviously very different from your national and institutional context. And so we also wanted to spend a little bit of time making the full use of the fact that we're here with around 60 colleagues, a huge network indeed. And we'd like to invite you to participate in a brief discussion of around 10 minutes, in which we'd like you to ask and to discuss with your peers what opportunities you would see in your own specific context. Would such a cross-institutional training where you work together with other institutions be an idea in your context? What would it take to make it work? And what would you actually need to do to speak to actually be able to take it to the next step? And as you notice, we're not talking about challenges and obstacles. There are plenty to be found, but as we've shown to you, we can start small and actually make it happen. So our colleague Madura will open up a number of breakout rooms where you'll be meeting with 3 or 4 of your colleagues. We'll give you 10 minutes to see what opportunities do you spot in your context. Could such a cross-institutional training work in the institution that you're employed at? So you'll be invited to join a breakout room. Just accept, you have 10 minutes. We realize it's way too short, and we'll meet you back in the plenary room after 10 minutes.
It looks like the individuals here need to join a room.
Yeah, you need to click the join room. I have opened all the rooms so people can just join them.
So there are 10 rooms. So if maybe each of you can choose, if there are 3 or 4 people that go into each room.
I think that there should be a pop-up on the screen that says join room.
Indeed, there is, but it's the rooms are not, the people aren't divided into the rooms themselves. So everyone can join a room, choose a room, I think.
Yeah, we can see that some of you already joining. So just join a small group so you can exchange some of your perspectives with your peers.
Hi, sorry. Could you tell me again, how can we get into a room, or where do we see where to choose the room?
If you scroll down, so if you see the breakout rooms pop up in the middle of your screen and you scroll down, you'll see the rooms by number. And if you click join, you can join any of the rooms.
There's no pop-up with an invitation to join rooms.
Exactly.
I'm assigning people to rooms.
Yes, I don't have the pop-up either. Thank you.
Hello, I guess I was the only one in the room. There was another person, but she was mute and she didn't communicate. So this is the reason why I'm back to the main room.
Let's see, maybe you can try and join another room.
I think we have sent everyone to the rooms.
Yeah, but I can still see Areta Galet. So she has not been reassigned a room yet.
Yeah, I was assigned to a room, but the person didn't even communicate.
Okay, this sometimes happens. So can you maybe see if she can join another room?
For some reason, I'm not seeing her name to be sent to the room.
I have moved Anita now.
Okay.
The person that I was in room number 9, I believe she wasn't really there because she wouldn't answer.
I'll move you to another room.
Thank you.
Ethan, can we send the room 7 people to another room?
Hello, nobody was in my room, so I left.
Which room were you in, Nena?
Number 8.
I'll send you to another room, yeah?
Okay, thank you.
It seems people are changing rooms or leaving.
Yeah.
So we end up with very, yeah.
Have you moved media? Okay. Claudia, can we move room number 8 people to somewhere else, or it's okay? There are only 2 of them.
Yeah, but 2 is okay if they're both active.
Okay.
Larissa is back.
Yes.
Yes, I met again with the same person, but she wasn't answering. So don't worry, I'll stay here.
Yeah, there's only 3 more minutes to go, so then everyone will join the plenary session again, and we'll see what observations can be noted.
Okay. Yeah, don't
Where are
worry.
you joining us from, Larissa?
From Mexico City.
I'm also from Mexico.
Oh, really?
But actually, I live in San Luis Potosí, but I was born there in Mexico City.
Good.
So I haven't got any partners in the breakout room, but well, maybe we can talk about here a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So what could be some of your reflections? What would you like to respond to? Anything that resonated with you? Any thoughts, ideas?
Well, I've been here in the internationalization coordinator since August, so I've been here for a little while, but I'm so interested to build some bridges and try anything to get this internationalization through my students and also through the university.
And what's your role in your university, Nena?
I'm the coordinator of languages and internationalization.
Okay.
So we are very interested in doing all of these because of, as you said, of the pandemic, students cannot travel, or sometimes it's a little bit expensive for them. So I'm doing this at home or from school. It will be an excellent idea.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And it makes it less vulnerable as well when we have been able to embed the international intercultural learning in our classes and not be solely dependent on student mobility.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So I send my email to you in the chat. So
Super.
I will be glad to have any other contact further.
Certainly, yeah. And you can also find us on LinkedIn. I think our profiles have also been uploaded on the conference platform.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if my Mexican colleague has done something about internationalization or something like that. Well, I don't know if she's still here.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Well, I have done some internationalization, but just as Claudia said at the beginning, not in the beginning from the classroom, at the classroom. So I contact with some Canadian teachers in order to have them interact in some of the groups that we have in Mexico. One was in political sciences, and the other one was with teachers. I work at the Open and Distance Education Center at UNAM. So we did a lot of training courses to our teachers. So we had a course on empathy online with the online teachers here in Mexico. But these have been small steps. And now that I heard you, I was thinking, yes, how to go to formalize this in order to make it a continuum and not just small happenings.
Yeah, but this is, you start small and then it's about creating that kind of continuity and a bit of sense making. I see we're joining some of the other participants are joining us from their breakout rooms, and we have a few more minutes to go. So welcome back, everyone. I hope that you did find someone in your breakout room, someone you could engage in conversation with. We're still with a fairly large group, so maybe I'd like to ask you if you can just note down in the chat what opportunities or what observations did you make together with your peers? What opportunities do you see for a similar approach working across institutions? So just let us know what you talked about in your breakout rooms by just typing it in the chat. Yeah, so take your time. What issues have you identified, but maybe also what doubts are there still in your mind, or maybe there are burning questions that you would like to propose?
Perhaps we can, in the meantime, while people are typing, address a couple of questions that have already been typed in the chat. And one of the participants is wondering, how do we actually recruit the participants of our training? So are they from all disciplines, lecturers in international relations? And if I can quickly answer that question, we openly recruit from any program, any degree program in the universities, because we want to have that multidisciplinary approach within our training as well. So it's an open invitation to lecturers directly. Sometimes it goes through their management, but sometimes lecturers express an interest in joining directly. So anyone from any discipline actually is welcome at our trainings.
It also makes sense, and this is a theme that we also saw at this conference, that because of the commitment towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, and we see a lot of our programs, a lot of academics really embracing these goals to tackle them and discuss them in their courses, that it's also makes for a more multidisciplinary composition of our training group as well, as working towards the Sustainable Development Goals also requires a multidisciplinary approach. So we found that it's quite suiting as well. In the meantime, let's just having a quick look at the chat. Some of you responded that you see great opportunities, you see ways to collaborate between international offices and academic champions. Yes, it's something that we witnessed as well, that within our own institutions we really had to navigate the structures and speak to many stakeholders that we maybe initially had not connected with. So it is about creating alliances within the institution to be able to work across institutions. And some of you shared some experiences as well. And there's been a lot of contributions in the chat, way more than we can possibly deal with. One also to point out is that working across institutions is also a really great way for lecturers to become aware of their blind spots, because we all know the practices that we've become so accustomed to the way that we're doing things, how we teach our courses, what we put in our courses, that it's also refreshing to hear a perspective from a colleague who might be working at a different institution, teaching the same subject, but doing it in a very different way. So it has really helped us enable our academics to unpack what is already there. Internationalization of teaching and learning is not so much about adding new things as it is about rediscovering what is already implicitly there in our courses. So plenty of opportunities, and I'm very sensitive or conscious of time. And we're about to wrap up the session with 1 more minute to go. If you would like to engage in further discussion with us, then please note down our email addresses. We're happy to discuss and share more with you. You can also find our LinkedIn profiles on the conference platform. Like to say thank you so much for participating, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.